Good morning and welcome to the Entrepreneur Spotlight. My name is Aricha Ojite and today we are going to be having a very robust conversation. We are talking about sustainable transport system, a pathway to economic growth in Nigeria. And I am joined this morning by Engineer Emmanuel John. He is the CEO of Emmanuel Mobility and a World Bank Senior Transport Consultant. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
I'm happy to be here again.
All right. So when it comes to transport system, everyone in Nigeria can relate to this topic because if you've ever sat in traffic in Abuja or Lagos or in Port Harcourt, if you're a businessman or a woman and you have to transport goods from the farm to the market or from the site of production to the warehouse and all of that, these are challenges that we face. Even if you are just perhaps a civil servant that commutes daily to workplace and all of that. So we are actually facing, when it comes to urban mobility, we're looking at transport system generally in Nigeria. We see that other states, developed countries, looking at perhaps China, the US, that have actually done sustainable measures in their transport system and how it has helped to grow their economy. And then looking down to us here, that we refer to as the third world countries, you see a significant difference. So what role does the transport system now have to do with our economy? If you could actually enlighten us more on how sustainable transport system can be a pathway to our economic growth.
Thank you very much. Transport is like the veins that pass through the body of human beings, that transports the blood through the entire body system. If blood stops flowing, you are dead in a few minutes. It's the same with transport. Without transport, there is no life. As a matter of fact, transport defines life.
Oh, wow.
If you are not moving, the tendencies are that you are either dead or getting close to death. And that's why when somebody is lying on the bed sick and his body is not moving again, everybody becomes afraid. So transport is the life fire of the economy. It defines job opportunities that people get. It defines delivery of goods and services to people. It ensures everyone can access services and goods. For instance, I couldn't have gotten here if not that there is a transport system to bring me. So all of these work together to define the well-being of humanity, and particularly in a country like Nigeria where the poverty level is at the roof. One thing that has been a reason for the level of poverty is the failure of transport.
Wow.
And I'm going to talk about that the more. Now, imagine what we call an employee of government that works at the Federal Secretariat who lives, for instance, in Masaka. His salary, assuming is 80,000, he requires about 50,000 to transport to go and come back in a month.
And it's almost 70% of his salary.
More than 70%. Yeah. There are people that their salary, their transport fare for a month is more than their salary. That is the recipe for poverty.
Exactly.
Now, imagine how that affects goods. I have a farm produce in Benue, for instance. I farm yam. I farm a Bene seed or corn or something, and I need to bring to Abuja to sell. By the time you add in Benue, up to this moment, a tuber of yam costs less than 500 naira in some places.
Yes.
In my village, for instance. Now, but in Abuja here, you need 5. In fact, I was pricing a yam, and they said it's 5,000 in Abuja.
For a single piece.
A single piece in Abuja. What makes the difference? Transport. And if it affects food, then it affects everything. Because everybody eats food.
Exactly.
You need food. It's the same thing. Products come from China to to Lagos. Is received at the port.
Before
the cost of transporting from the port in Lagos, from the port Apapa,
yes, Apapa,
for instance, Lagos, to any of the markets within Lagos is more expensive than bringing from China to Lagos because of poor transportation system. If you talk about goods leaving Lagos and going to Kano or coming to Abuja, this is why things are expensive. Some things are better bought outside than in Nigeria because the cost changes. And that affects the economy. How does it do? If it becomes so expensive, people cannot afford it. And then you hear people, the producers, the sellers goes to China and say, please produce the one that is of lesser quality so that the cost can come down for me to make profit. And so it affects everything. Oh, this is the value of transport.
You know, when you were actually putting all of these measures to play that, the transport is like the whole veins that transport everything, is like the central thing. And when you even said that, it reinforces poverty.
Yes.
Because right now, even in the city of Abuja, I've heard a lot of persons will say that I quit my job because I cannot afford to go to work anymore. And when a lot of persons be like, okay, you cannot manage your finances, and then someone will be like, how can you manage finances when you don't even have it?
It's not there. What do you do?
And then young persons will be like, okay, if I cannot be productive at work because I cannot afford to go to work, and even the employers as well, their hands are also tied because they have to make profits in order to pay off salaries. So where do we start now? Like, because when it comes to transport system, whether it is by road, by train, even by rail transport, it's something else. Because we hear all of the derailment that happened a few days ago. And a lot of persons even have apathy, like if we can't even trust the rail system, we don't even have any water system functional, that people will be like, okay, let us go through that route. So there's a lot of problem in this part of the world, in Nigeria, especially when it comes to transport system. So what could be the underlying problems? What are the root causes of this failure in our transport system?
Thank you very much. When the colonial masters came, they helped in setting up certain level of transport system to enhance connectivity and economic development. But upon their departure after independence, there has been this gradual decline. We had some level of effectiveness in our rail system when they were around. But when they left and we walked through the process over time, that success all faded. The rail system almost totally collapsed. There was a time we had the National Urban Mass Transit System, where buses funded by the federal government are available to convey people from state to state. That died as a result of corruption, and the company folded. The agency that was created for that purpose died. And so everything collapsed, and the entire transport system was, in quote, handed over to the informal sector, where unions grow to become giants, and to a point that they regulate themselves, they define their system, they define how they want to run, and government was no longer in control. And there's nowhere in the world where transport is successful in the hand of the private sector.
Exactly, because it's more on the profit side.
They are there for their profit. That's why I quarrel a lot when government is buying buses and giving to unions and private sector to run. Is complete aberration to transport development. What is required, as it is, if we want to set the pace, is to ensure that first we have a transport policy that drives the focus of transport. And I'm happy the president just approved, the Federal Executive Council just approved the National Transport Policy just on the 1st of this month. And different conversations are going on. This is the first time we're having a substantive transport policy in over 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And so we have an opportunity to use what is contained in that policy, which I had the privilege of being involved in developing. We can take advantage of all of the content of that policy to drive transport. That's number one. Number two, there has to be a focal intervention to take away transport from the informal sector. During the COVID, during the early wars, 3 years ago, when the Ukraine and Russia war started,
exactly,
there was gas crisis in Europe. One thing Germany did
Yes.
to cushion the impact of the gas shortage, which has led to increase in cost of transportation, is to peg the transportation cost at €9 per month
Wow.
for
No,
citizens. So once you get the ticket, you can ride from state to state, you can ride within the city, you can go everywhere, and that
then it
ticket
is
serves
being
your purpose.
regulated.
Exactly.
So I think time is not on our side, but from the instances you have actually made on the new policy, and I think if this policy, I believe that if this policy is actually put into place, I think we are on the right track on having our transport system back, at least restoring it back to somewhere that we as citizens can be productive, because you have rightly said that transport is the lifeline of society and development and economic growth. This is actually where we leave it this morning on the Entrepreneur Spotlight. It has been a pleasure having to discuss this with you, Engineer Emmanuel John. He's the CEO of Ochenwell Mobility and a World Bank Senior Transport Consultant. It's, we also have a music guy here that would be also playing for us, and we have more coming your way on politics. We have more coming your way on the weekend show.